All right, welcome back to the latest episode of Extra Time, the U.S. Men's National Team Soccer Podcast. The Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup is completely over. It is all done and it's wrapped up. We are going to chat about that. We're going to go over the awards, Golden Boot, Golden Ball, Golden Glove, Golden Podcast. All of those things are going to get touch base on. We got our ugly sweaters out. We are rocking them. We got less than a week now to go until Christmas. It's been an amazing holiday season. And we're also going to touch base on the latest Giovanni Reyna and Greg Berhalter controversy as where we think Greg's going to go in the future. All that is coming up on this episode of Extra Time, so stay tuned. All right, so first, Ryan, props to you, buddy. You had Argentina winning. I think you even had France playing them in the final. So
I did.
Bracket crushing right and left.
I mean, most everything else was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah,
Morocco making a deep run and Brazil getting knocked out before they got to play Argentina. So I have the finals right, but pretty much everything else along the way is just wrong.
Right. So before we get into like all of those things, I have one question, and my question is sort of in regards to Morocco, but more this hypothetical that do we feel like the results of this tournament were drastically impacted by the World Cup being in the wintertime?
I mean, due to injuries or just because it was played in the wintertime?
So both injuries and because the lack of rest for a lot of the players, right? There's rumors and theories going around that some of the lower teams in the tournament went further. And I don't know if they're poking shots at Morocco. I don't think so. Morocco, we watched them, they're a pretty good team. But like they were poking this idea that some of the lesser power teams in the tournament, because they didn't have players playing in the EPL, might have done better because leagues like the some of the other domestic leagues, they let their players off and gave them a lot more rest, whereas the Premier League played that whole week, and the players basically had like 5 to 6 days to rest. Chris, Ryan, what do you think? Somebody, no, Ryan, I don't care. Somebody, what do you think?
Yeah, now we're both just going to
That's what. All right.
So it's possible that that's the case, right? Like guys have more time off. They're not injured. They don't come in with bumps and bruises, and you could see guys maybe playing differently. But what do you mean by like lower ranked teams without guys in the EPL going deep? There was really only one team that did it, right? Like think about like all of the teams that made it into the knockout round, minus what? Morocco. The majority of players play in Premier Leagues. And even Morocco has quite a few guys that play in Premier League. So, do I think that affects the long run?
You just think it's baloney. You just think the whole thing's baloney, right?
I mean, I'm sure it affected some players, like because you're missing star guys or guys are coming in with injuries and aren't playing, at 100% just because. I broke my ankle 6 weeks before the World Cup. I'll be okay to play, but am I really going to go 100% on just recovering from a broken ankle?
That's true. Chris, do you have any thoughts?
I think I'm of a similar mind. It definitely didn't drastically affect it, but it really did affect it a little bit. Teams like Spain and Brazil, yeah, maybe their guys were a little tired and not quite sharp for the tournament because they've been playing so much. I could believe that maybe. I would say the one thing that it really did affect was the final itself, because Argentina had all of their starters. They didn't have Pogba and Kante.
Well, and Benzema. They didn't have Karim Benzema
came in
either.
and replaced them, did a great job. But for the final, were they quite up to that task? Apparently not.
Right. So all right. So then going into the final, um, Ryan, I know that you were like catching what you could. Right. You saw a decent amount of the game, but obviously you were like working and
I
had
mean,
to.
I saw all but 15 minutes of the game.
Okay. So yeah. So I mean, you were working. You couldn't chat with us, but you saw enough of the game. So we were in watching it in Discord with a pretty big group of us, and I want to say about the 20-minute mark, Logan pipes in and Logan goes, "I'm curious as to how many of these French guys got whatever illness was going around in the locker room." Right? Chris, did it feel that way to you on the pitch, or is this the true France team and Argentina is just that good?
It definitely seemed like it was a little sluggish. But at the same time, Argentina was just on fire. Like their players had so much spark or drive or whatever that they were flying all over the pitch. Um, it did seem like, because I'm pretty sure they said Rabiot had gotten it. I know they said Varane had gotten it. So
Yeah, Rabiot was like quarantined from the
that
team in the in the hotel room or something.
sluggishness that you saw from France, much of that was mental, how much of that was actually lingering effects from whatever that illness was. It's a possibility for sure.
Ryan, you're the Argentina fan in this group, right? What was your take on the game? Like, did Argentina live up to it? Do you think Argentina is really that good? Like, were there any other factors in play?
Well, I do think Argentina is that good, and I mean, FIFA rankings
Too.
and just
They
the
were,
statistics in general shows that like they're not a bad team by any means. Do I think they were the best team at the World Cup? Not every game. What I think helped them was getting out of group stage for them was a struggle after losing that game to Saudi Arabia. So I think that lights a fire under a lot of the guys because they're like, we lose a game we're projected to win by 6 goals. This is Messi's last World Cup with Argentina. We got to do something. So then Logan also said this during one of the games. Every game Argentina played after their opening game was a knockout game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
that's what the players had said.
Yeah,
yep.
They played a do or die, every game.
And I think Argentina had a more difficult challenge getting to the final than France did. France, I think their only tough opponent was England.
His only challenge was England.
And Argentina Netherlands gave them a challenge. Croatia didn't as much offensively, but defensively, Croatia really held their own for a little while. They had some great guys in the back on Croatia that had fantastic tournaments. It was a little sad to see them not make the final. I would have liked Croatia, Morocco get a new team to win the World Cup and not just one of the 8 that have already
Although Croatia
won it.
really came alive in that consolation game.
They did.
Like I felt
consolation game was fantastic.
I felt like the semifinal was kind of tough to watch for Croatia because it felt like they had run out of gas, right? And Argentina was still firing on all cylinders, and they were like they knew the road didn't stop there, right? They were going for the trophy, and it was like Croatia was kind of like, like they were, they had taken a couple punches. They're in the corner of the ring. They're like, can we just get 5 minutes? The referee's like, no, sorry, like the bell rang, like we're going.
And Argentina's just wailing on them.
Right, exactly. And then they come out against Morocco, and we're watching them. That goal that they score, that opening goal, just the creativity, the inventiveness, the flair that they had. That was like what we had seen in the tournament, if not even more than we had saw in the tournament. Obviously, Morocco comes right back down the field and does the exact same thing. Which I even said, like, they go take the free kick. I said, how hilarious would it be if Morocco scored on this? And then Morocco scores, and I was like, oh my gosh, like if we got ourselves a game. Obviously, Croatia, continue to turn it up in that aspect. But before we go into the final, just quick yes or no. If France has Karim Benzema, Chris, do they win this game?
Just Benzema?
Just Karim Benzema. No. Ryan, if France has Karim Benzema, do they win this game?
I don't think so. I mean, because attack...
The midfield.
Yeah, attack strategies changed. And one of the biggest examples of that is watching Portugal when they lost their game in the knockout round. they're losing by 1, and they sub in like 65th minute, 70th minute, they sub in Cristiano Ronaldo. Their entire strategy of the game changed to, let's just try to play the ball to him or play the ball in the air to him. We'll let him do everything. And it didn't work.
Wait, it
really
didn't
work.
It
didn't
didn't
even
work?
come remotely close to working.
But it's Cristiano Ronaldo.
Doesn't matter.
Guy's a stud.
I don't think France falls into that strategy because they have so much skill up front with, Giroud, Griezmann, Mbappe, and if Benzema's in there, Benzema. So I don't think they fall into the let's just funnel everything through Benzema and try to get him to score. But I don't think he's enough of a threat anywhere on the field other than as a striker to have mattered in that game. France's chances to
One
score,
player
they scored on.
Yeah, Chris.
France did not have a chance. Oh, sorry.
No,
France
you're fine.
did
Finish
not
your thought.
have
Finish your
a-
thought. Yeah,
available.
yeah.
Yeah, France did not have a creative moment where I thought, if they had a different striker on the field, he'd have scored that. Because, they have 2 penalty kicks that get scored. I think Mbappe or Benzema both make those. I don't think Benzema scores the goal Mbappe scored
No.
in the run of play.
I don't think there's
falling over and
anybody in the
fouling.
World Cup really that's going to score the goal Benzema or that Mbappe scored.
Giroud
So-
didn't have is that Benzema wouldn't have had.
That's fair. Well, and so that's
I would say the
nope. You go,
one
Chris.
player who would have won the game for France if he was available is Conte. Because
100%.
that midfield, he would have been on Messi at the time, which would have made a big difference. And then he would have been disrupting the flow of the midfield, there with McAllister and Fernandez and DePaul.
Right.
I don't want to take anything away from Messi and Conte of marking him, but from the tournament, I don't think there was a midfielder or defender in that tournament that had a chance against the way Messi was playing.
Well, and I would say the same thing for Mbappe too, and I think that's what
Yep.
made this tournament so exciting, right? When you looked at this final, you had seen in the semifinals and the corners and the quarterfinals, every time Messi was marked by one guy or 2 guys, he took them on and won every time. The only time I really observed, and obviously maybe there was 1 or 2 that I missed where he lost it, but some of the only times that I saw Messi not do that was when 3 or 4 players collapsed on him, and then what did he do? He either just stopped, laid the ball backwards, or hit some brilliant ball over the top, right? Mbappe, same situation. You were watching him. They play the ball on the wing, and what did his eyes do? He looked up the field, and you could just see the hunger in his eyes that he was just like, oh, yeah, it's dinner time. Like, I got 2 guys on me, right? When Messi scored that goal in stoppage time, right? Against Guardiola, or right? Guardiola. I'm pronouncing it. You guys,
The
yeah.
assist for it, yeah.
Yeah, or got the assist for it. I mean, he literally was like, and I knew it too. One guy's marking Messi like he's gone. He's going to just eat this guy alive, right? And he doesn't do any moves. He just torches him. And you saw the same thing with Mbappe. So to that extent, like I think you're right, Ryan. Like, we'll get to this afterwards. Like, I think Messi showed why he's the best player in the world, right? But to put the brakes on that one, put a pin in that and come back to it, going back to the Benzema thing, I agree with both of you guys. As much as I want to believe Benzema makes a big difference for France in this tournament, in this game, France was just out of ideas and out of gas, right? Koundé played terrible, right? Dembele played terrible. Even Griezmann didn't play that great. Turnover after turnover after turnover. I mean, Mbappe didn't even get touches until he scored his 2 goals, right? So if you didn't get to watch this final, I don't even understand how you're even watching this podcast, right? Over 1 billion people watch this. But anyway.
Yeah, go watch the final.
Go watch the final
It's
first,
awesome.
right?
It's worth
Pause
it.
this video, go watch the final, and then come back. So I don't think, this is my opinion now, and then I'll check in with you guys. 3-3 to penalties was not an accurate review of this game. I don't think this game was 3-3 by any chance, right? And that's not trying to take credit away from Mbappe. I said before the game started, and I said early on in the game, when Argentina was winning 1 and Argentina was winning 2, I said in our Discord, I said, Mbappe is one of those guys that if he just gets one chance, he's going to score. And can Argentina really shut down Mbappe for 90 minutes, right? Now, at the 70th minute, I was starting to believe they could, but not because Argentina was really doing anything, because France was doing nothing, right? The whole first half was a train wreck. I was just like, why is France here, right? Argentina just firing on all cylinders, controlling every aspect of the game. Di Maria was a monster, right? I mean, Koundé did not stand a chance. He torched him right and left. He was sucking second defenders in. He was like, there was nothing France could do up that side. And every time they collapsed to try to commit guys to there, Di Maria punished him, right? Played the ball across like they're winning things, So on that token, this game was pretty handily. This game felt like a 2-0 Argentina game, right? Like it felt like Argentina just should have just won the game 2-0. They, slam the door closed. It's over. Obviously, penalties are penalties, right? So they get the penalty kick call, and okay. And then Mbappe does what amazing great players do, right? He just scores a brilliant goal, right? Full volley, just like knocks the thing in the bottom corner. Game play time, a minute and a half. Real actual play time, probably 30 seconds, right? It wasn't very long after kickoff that he's putting the ball in the back of the net. Then you got, Messi being Messi, just doing what he does, right? Like it's extra time going in and just getting himself in the position he's got to get into, just making no mistake, right? And again, what you saw was you watched Argentina sort of make subs and go to sleep, right? They settled in to play defensively. France punished them, and it was 2-2. And you were wondering, is France going to get another one? And then all of a sudden, Argentina just turned the switch back on. And they just attacked up the field, and you were like, oh, no, here they are. And they go right down the field, boom, 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 boom. They knock the ball in. Messi gets his goal. And if it wasn't for another fluky handball penalty kick that Mbappe just buries to get his hat trick, if it wasn't for those, I thought Argentina just kind of handedly won this thing. Chris, you start this time.
I would say 2-0 is not accurate. I would say 3-2 is about how the game felt to me. I say that because France, and this was true, this was something we had known before the game, has a much deeper bench than Argentina. So Argentina pressed in hard and, they played their hearts out. You could tell by like the 60th minute, they were starting to slow down a little bit. And then France had subs in. Kingsley Coman changed the game. Part of that was, France shifting to only 3 in defense.
He did. Kingsley Coman was a fantastic sub for France off the bench.
Oh, the France's bench challenged Argentina enough that, those 2 goals, even though it just felt off, the 2 goals I think were justified. But then, Argentina finally put some subs in. Julian Alvarez was so gassed, and I felt so bad for him. He just kept trying. And, they finally got him out, and they were able to press high again. And that was part of it. I would say it would have felt justified to me as to how the teams performed. Because France's bench, the guys that they subbed in, fantastic. They did a great job coming in and changing the game. But like you said, Argentina dominated for those first 70 minutes. And for the way that game played out, Argentina deserved to win. And I'm thankful that they did in the end.
Ryan, 3-3 scoreline of penalties accurate? You think that scoreline is reflective of the game you watched?
Yes and no. Argentina broke down at numerous points in the game. After the penalty kick for Mbappe, they basically go to sleep and just let France go right back down the field and score again. And you can't do that, especially when you're up 2 goals. You can't just, you let in the first one and then just be like, oh, we're still winning. And then boom, the next one's already in the net before you can even react to it. I think 2 penalties in the game were a little soft. I don't know if I'd have called the handball one. I don't know if it didn't look to me as if it was far enough away from his body to really have made that much of a difference. And the first one for Argentina, I don't think should have been called either.
Well, can we?
But-
So can we dive? Let's dive into that for a second, because the reason I like that statement is France had an opportunity to have another penalty kick called way late in the match, which the referee very clearly was like, "No, we're not dealing with this get up," right? And I talked to Chris about this, and I agreed with what Chris had said, right? So Chris, you had texted me back and you said the difference was that France's player left his foot in that tackle to try to draw contact, which when you look at it, it's obvious that he's doing that. My concern with it wasn't me rooting for France or any of those things. It was trying to find the consistency in the refereeing, that when they called that first penalty early in the game, a lot of us in Discord that were chatting said, that's a really high standard now for you to have to uphold for the whole game, because that's such a soft penalty to award that now anytime somebody gets knocked over in the box, players have the right to say like, oh, what about that? Right? Like, I get he barely clipped me, but like he still clipped me. And so like, is that...
The big difference between all of those is the first one was entirely from behind. Like Di Maria blew past him into the box, and Dembele was chasing. Like he had vision on the ball or the goal. He's just chasing him. And yeah, it didn't look like he swung at him, but he clipped his, their legs got tangled and he clipped his legs and he went down. And you got beat and then you knocked him down. Yes. And that's a penalty.
And I do see why it's a penalty for that reason. But
yeah,
at the same time, that had happened in other games in the tournament, and referees had said play on, and they didn't even go back to look at it.
Right, so you're talking consistency through that from a tournament sense.
Yeah, you're basically looking at the whole tournament in general going, oh, I've seen that happen before, and they didn't call it, so why did they call it this time, especially in the final?
But, I mean, wasn't it the Ghana game? Was it the Ghana game where the guy... What game was... No, it wasn't Ghana. Qatar. Now, when the Qatar dude just got creamed in the box, and it was they were playing because they were playing Portugal, or was it who? No, it wasn't Qatar. Portugal played somebody, and Portugal got awarded
Senegal?
a bunch of, maybe, and they got awarded a bunch of penalty kicks, and like they creamed this dude and just laid him out, and he was like, "Where's that?" And I was like, "Dude, if you're gonna call the Ronaldo penalty, like you got to call this one."
Yeah, it was Ghana.
Yeah. So, like, I agree with what Chris is saying. Like, I think in that situation, you have to, right? Because there is contact. What was confusing for me was, and maybe the referee was just that good, it was tough to see it on the replay in slow motion. So, like, I could have seen that penalty being the referee says no, VAR says, I don't know, it looks like there's some contact, and then VAR says there's a penalty. Whereas, like, there were other moments in the games where it was like, whoa. And continuing, most of my issues with the refereeing wasn't the penalty calls, right? I was just, found all those fine. There were a lot of tackles with guys' studs coming high, going clean through the tops of them, underneath their shin guards, over the tops of their feet. And like, some of them were fouls, some of them weren't even fouls, and none of them were yellow cards. And, there was a very clear standard in this tournament where when guys came in and their studs, we saw it replay after replay after replay. When your studs crunched down on the top of somebody's foot and rolled over them, you were getting a card. You were getting a card every time. And I felt like for 80 minutes, we just watched it over and over and over again. These poor players were just getting absolutely ripped. Not to try, I mean, I think I just took like a tangent, but...
DePaul got absolutely abused.
Mm-hmm. Right, DePaul got abused. He got abused that whole game.
And as much as I want to say that some of those he probably like made it a little more than it needed to be, I think in a 5-minute span, his left ankle was kicked like 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
And studs down on his ankle and nothing. There was really only one foul I was a little upset with that didn't I don't remember who it was, but it was like he kind of like scissored as he slid, he closed on the dude's legs and kind of twisted and brought him down.
Yeah, because I was like, when I saw the replay, I was like, that's a borderline red card.
I was like, that could have been a red card.
Right.
Now, I think his saving grace was his studs weren't up for the tackle because he wasn't anywhere near the ball. He was so late in the challenge, and he just grabbed the guy's leg between his legs and just twisted and yanked him to the ground.
Right. I mean, a 2-footed tackle from behind, like with no ball, is just kind of like one of those, like, he's at least getting a yellow, right?
And he did.
It's very true. There should have been more cards, but it's also true that historically the World Cup final, they're so afraid to give cards.
Right.
They
Yeah.
just
The referees don't want to decide
don't
the
want
game.
to.
Right. Yeah,
I
because
mean,
you don't want to be the guy who
what was it? It was 2010, Nigel de Jong, like
Spartan
the
kicked him.
clear red card, and he only got a yellow. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure he was going to get a yellow until the players argued with the referee, because the referee doesn't even go to his pocket right away.
Yeah.
He just calls and blows for a whistle, and then like the other team surrounds the referee like, are you really about to let that happen? And then he like pulls out the yellow card, and you're like, oh, that could have been real bad.
Right. And another thing that we saw in this game,
it was clearly a red.
Clearly
like,
a
by
red.
a mile.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, literally
Oh,
just jumped up and just drop kicked the dude. And the guy's like, I remember the guy going like, ooh, like, and like they're showing on the replay, and it's just kind of like, that guy's going to get ejected. Like,
like, how did he not?
and the referee's just like, easy, buddy. Easy.
Yeah.
Like,
This
you
is
gotta
your
calm
warning.
down.
I haven't had to talk to you all game.
Right.
Just this is your warning. Next time it's a yellow.
Right. Next time it's a yellow. So another thing that I like that the commentators brought up in this game, which we've talked about a lot, and I just touch base on it real quick before we keep moving, is there was a moment in the game where one of the France players got fouled, and he didn't go down, and he kind of tried to play on, and the referee played advantage, and the tackle was a yellow card tackle, right? A guy had come through him clean, threw it like studs up, just completely missed the ball, and they played on, and they played for a long period of time, right? Before eventually the ball like went out of bounds and like a sub was made or something, and the France bench went ballistic, and the commentators even said that's unacceptable, because if he just goes down there and embellishes that foul, the referee calls it and gives the guy a yellow card. Why does he not get a yellow card just because you played advantage? If we want to stop players from simulating and embellishing and diving and doing all that nonsense, which the whole world just saw on the big stage, right? The whole world just made fun of us, right? It's the memes of like hockey players and football players coming out because soccer players like that poor Brazilian dude who had the corner kick kicked at him and he's like, my face. It's everywhere. And it is like watching grown men roll on the ground is embarrassing. We're not going to fix it if you keep forcing players to self-referee themselves. Do you guys remember the moment I'm talking about?
Oh.
It was Kingsley Coman is the France player. And I think it was Enzo Fernandez, but it might have been Tagliafico, one of those two. But yeah, he from behind slide tackled, get the ball. Coman fought through it. He almost went down, but he fought through it and played the ball on. And the referee gave the play on signal. Like he saw the foul, gave the play on signal. France kept, they got their chance. It didn't result in a shot or anything. But yeah, like 2 minutes later, the ball went out of bounds. And I mean, I think everybody, even the Argentina bench, was expecting the ref to go give him a yellow card. But he didn't. He just kept going. And it's absolutely true. And it's odd to me because I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, there was a really big emphasis on that of like the play on, keeping play going, but making sure you always went back and gave the yellow card. And that seems to have just like kind of dropped off, and I don't know why, but it's very true. Like that needs to be punished so that we don't get, players saying, well, if I just go down, then I'll get the call.
Right.
Yeah, I must have missed that from just being at work because I do not remember this tackle at all.
Well, because it was like it was the big view of the field, and it happened like in the left-hand side. Like it kind of happened as the ball was coming across, and he went down and the camera kept moving. The commentators made a comment about it when the play came to a stop. I think it was I don't remember John Strong, whatever commentator it was said, I think we're going to see the referee book him now or something like that. And then he didn't. And then he went into his, 1 minute rant of like that, like that's ridiculous because if he just goes down, he's going to get the yellow card there. So like, if you want to stop players simulating, you're going to have to go give this yellow card. And the other thing that, speaking of that I didn't like consistency wise, okay, is that when he didn't award France the penalty kick, he gave him a yellow card for simulation. Right? I don't think that was simulation. I don't think it was a penalty, but That's a really hard bar for FIFA to uphold, because if it's not a penalty, then you're saying it's not a foul, which means you're assuming he's simulating and you have to give him a yellow card. And that's really dangerous, because what does it do? It does the same thing in a World Cup final that handing out regular yellow cards does. If I give a guy a yellow card in the 5th minute, what happens later on in the game if he gets another one? Now I got to eject him. And it's like, no, it's the rules. We should just be upholding the rules. And if a player does 2 stupid things and gets thrown out of the World Cup final, that's on them, not the referee. But it's not that easy.
Could be, yeah.
Right. It's not that simple. So I just thought it was strange that, like, that was the time where simulation. Like, Anthony didn't get any for Brazil when he literally just, like, jumped in the air with nobody near him and was like, my ankle. Like, he should have got a yellow card.
3 times?
Yes, 3 times. 3 times he did it, you know? But anyway, all right. So before we get into the awards, let's talk what was the goal of the tournament. Okay? So there's a couple.
To win the World Cup?
No. There's a couple that come to mind for me. Okay? And when we look at this, because Logan made a good point, there were a couple goals, specifically by Argentina, that you'd want to award for goal of the tournament simply because of the buildup, right? For Argentina's second goal, one touch, trap, pass,
oh my gosh,
one
that was
touch,
amazing.
was insane. I'm willing to put that one up there as the goal of the tournament. My other ones are Richarlison's, like, over-the-shoulder turnaround scissor kick, right? Kylian Mbappe's volley in the final, right, in this World Cup final. Kylian Mbappe's bend against Poland when he hit it up in the corner. Are there other goals that you're thinking of in this tournament that you were like, hey, I want to nominate this one and we can look at them and talk about it? Those are the ones that come to mind for me that I just remember going like, dang, that was a sweet goal. I think Saudi Arabia's bend against Argentina, that second goal they scored when he curled that one up there.
Yeah. Remember specifically, there was a Croatia goal in one of the games that looked really good to me, but I don't remember which one it was. So in saying that, I would go with the second goal from Argentina. I'm a team goal kind of guy more than an individual brilliance goal kind of guy. So that one for me was amazing. That was fantastic play.
Right, you got a goal that stands out for you for your goal of the tournament?
Yeah, and not for your typical reasons for goal of the tournament. Like, it's not a fantastic looking shot. It's not a like a bicycle kick or a half volley. But En-Nesyri's header against Portugal for Morocco, because the man out jumps his defender by 1.5 feet, 2 feet. He got so high up to win that ball in the air. And not only that, but he put it in the exact perfect spot on that header.
Yep. That was a beautiful header. And
it wins them the game. They win 1-0. So that, obviously, it's got a lot going for the goal there. I don't think it's as nice looking as Argentina's build-ups or, like Richarlison's scissor kick that he plays to himself kind of thing. But being able to out-jump somebody by that much when you're the same height and with a defender right on you is so hard to do.
It is.
That
I can tell you what would have been the goal of the tournament. When that Argentina guy just kind of like jumped, like rabbit hopped up in the air and just kicked that ball.
Oh yeah.
And Hugo, if that had gone in, that was like just
awesome.
underneath, like Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's goal from years ago, that like 38-yard bomb.
Wow.
That's probably like, I don't
know
know if we're going to get there, but like that one was close. If this guy had hit that weird scissor thing, like that was up there.
I still think the best goal I've ever seen in the World Cup is Tim Cahill's.
Oh, that's true. Tim Cahill's like over the shoulder, just smashing it in there.
It's a 60-yard pass. He just volleys without it hitting the ground over his shoulder.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because when I watched Mbappe do this, that's what it reminded me of. I was like, oh, this is kind of like a mini Cahill goal. Like I remember when Cahill did that. Enter Valencia's header, his second goal of the tournament. Again, like I thought that was a brilliant one. I thought Croatia's header against Morocco was just fantastic.
The window he had to squeeze that in to actually get. After all of their clever little back and forth, like he got it right exactly where he needed to
squeeze
be.
it exactly where he needed it to. Yeah, absolutely. So there were a lot of goals. Let us know what you guys think It could have been one of the goals we just talked about. It could be a completely different one. I'm going to try to get some YouTube links to the goals that we talked about so you guys can watch them and review them. Moving forward, the awards, right? So first off,
two of the three are correct.
Right. So Ryan, I believe 2 or 3. So Golden Boot is not really up for debate because it's a numerical standard, right? Kylian Mbappe, his back is killing him after this tournament. He literally just like hoisted all of France on his back. Like I couldn't even you saw on his face, right? Like he steps up, he takes the first penalty, he scores the first penalty, and then he watches his next two teammates just totally shank it. And he's just standing there like.
The best thing I saw was just a picture of him with his head in his hands, and it just said Kylian Mbappe after scoring 4 goals, watching his team fail to score.
Right. Like, Mbappe, that's what's crazy to me is Mbappe scored 4 goals for France. Okay?
So
if you're
maybe that's where Benzema would have changed the result. Because Benzema probably goes second, and he's definitely scoring his penalty.
But does Benzema have the gas to go 120 minutes?
I think in the final he does. I think there's just nothing. You just don't pull him.
I mean,
but they took Griezmann
they probably would have started. They probably would have started with Giroud and brought Benzema in,
or vice versa, or Benzema starts and Giroud's coming in,
and Giroud comes in.
And either one of them is making that penalty.
Right?
Yes, I think Griezmann makes a penalty. I was very shocked to see him come out.
Right, but how is that for a stat line though? Thinking about this.
Yeah.
When is the last time a player scored 4 goals in the World Cup final and his team did not win?
I mean, he technically only scores 3 because
I know they don't count the penalties, but
count.
So when's the last time a guy got a hat trick in a World Cup final and his team lost?
December 18th, 2022.
Like, right? But like literally, like I can't even understand how it feels to be that somebody else had done it. I know that. I feel like somebody else had scored.
I think it was Bill. No, I don't know. They said it had happened one other time. Remember when?
Let's see. World Cup final hat tricks.
It was way back there.
List of FIFA World Cup finals hat tricks. There's 2.
Oh boy.
There are 2 of them.
And they're both lost. They both lost.
Wait, it says notable World Cup hat tricks. Oh wait, no, there's a bunch of these. Okay. So let's see. World Cup hat tricks. Oh, no. This is World Cup hat tricks. It's not World Cup final hat tricks.
But yeah, no, Mbappe definitely deserved Golden Boot the way he played in the tournament. That man knows how to find the back of the net, hands down. We need a striker like that on the U.S.
One player has scored
opposite.
Only one player scored 4 goals for the losing side. 3 other players have scored a hat trick for the losing side. One other player, 2 have been scored in the same match. 2 players have scored hat tricks in World Cup finals. They're Jeff Hurst, who scored 3 goals for England against West Germany in the 1966 final.
And they lost that.
This was also the longest hat trick to be completed.
England won that one, right?
England won 66?
The only World Cup they've won.
I thought they won in 62.
I don't know. Yeah, the 1966 final. England won 4-2 over West Germany.
Okay.
So the only other guy to score a hat trick is Jeff Hurst, and his team won. And then it says Kylian Mbappe scored a hat trick in the 2022 World Cup final for France against Argentina, and they lost.
Oh my God!
And you know it's going to be so bittersweet, and I'm so curious to see how it affects team dynamics because Mbappe's going. Him and Messi are about to get on a plane together to fly back to PSG to start training together. And like both of them like deserve it, right? Like they both deserve it. So before we go into all those things, right? So yes, so he gets a golden boot. They're putting another pin on another conversation. So player of the tournament. Okay? This is going to be I'm going to save that one. I want to save the golden ball because it's going to tie into the other things. Golden glove. Right? They gave it to Martinez, which I think is wrong.
He had like a 30% save percentage. It's downright awful.
I understand why, right? He makes he makes 1 penalty save in the World Cup final, and everybody's hyped on him as the final. But like, Chris,
he also does make that save at the end of the game.
Yeah, that save at the end of that is
an unbelievable
he had to
save.
make that save.
Yes.
I think Mbappe
There were
puts
other
that away.
keepers.
My 2 cents.
there were other keepers certainly. Disney for Poland, he was fantastic until they got eliminated. But they got eliminated too early, I
What
think,
about
to really
Morocco's
consider
goalie?
him.
Yeah, Bunu, I think, deserved it.
I don't know. I mean, he was good, but the reality is that the chances on him were not as good as against the other keepers.
They weren't, but I mean,
No,
Morocco didn't concede a
the one
goal
who
until the
I say
semifinals.
the one I would say deserved it the most was Livakovic from Croatia. Like,
Oh,
he
you know
was the
what?
one who
100%. Yeah.
deserved it.
I think I could handedly agree with that. I think Livakovic should have
Like you
got it. Yeah.
said,
I honestly think
his
Allison
performance in the final.
was Allison should have won it before Martinez.
Hold on. Come here, Ox. Come here. Augie's got... No, Ox, come here, buddy. My dog has that ugly Christmas sweater on. Come here, dude. Bring me a toy.
Boy.
Come look at this dog.
Oh my god.
He's got a dinosaur Christmas sweater on. Anyway. Yeah, no, I think it's Livakovic. I think performance-wise, like, he had a ton of saves that were just, like, absolutely stellar standout saves.
Now he comes right up.
Now you want to show
Part
everybody
of it,
the
Tim.
sweater. There it is. There's the dinosaur sweater.
Oh my god.
It's beautiful, Augie. It's beautiful. All right.
Fantastic.
Bye, buddy. Go see Mom.
No, I think there was a good 3 or 4 goalies that were, in my opinion, better than Emi Martinez that deserved. But I don't want to take anything away from him because he had 2 penalty shootouts in knockout stage, and he saved
A lot of penalties
technically
saved.
4. Technically 4 if you count the one that France missed, right? They missed the net. So he gets credit for not
Well, and I
allowing
could count
it to
that
go
too
in,
because
but-
if the guy hits it on frame, he's got it.
Had it pretty covered.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
so
think
that-
with the pace the France guy had on it that he wasn't
So-
just going to save it.
So when you look at, he had 7 guys shoot against him in penalty shootouts in the knockout stages, and only 3 of them went in. That is absurdly good.
Yeah,
Now,
that's really sick.
Now he also has a very unorthodox way of playing goalie for penalty kicks. He is very vocal and he likes to stand as close as the referee will let him to the taker while they're setting up.
Oh, you could tell.
And-
Yeah, you could tell.
He's all about
And-
the head games.
Yep, and as much as people are like, there's no way the games get to those guys because they're professional, and it might not, and he might just get lucky, but something was working.
Something was. And
I think the normal statistic for penalty saves is like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 or something like that.
Yep, I
Not
always
supposed to happen.
I always tell Tim, if the goalie can make 2 saves, they win it.
oh, 100%. If the goalie gets 1, you're putting your team in a great spot. But like you're right. I mean, 1 is good, but like the other team, like your team could also just miss 1. Right?
Yep.
So like once you get the second one, you're really putting the nail in the coffin. And on a reverse note of this, I can tell you I'm impressed at how far France made it with how poorly Hugo Lloris played.
Oh,
he
did not play
I mean,
well.
like he had games where it was like a travesty to have him as your goalie, where like no
He
one would have.
saved 0 penalty kicks.
That one that got hit at him.
tournament.
That one penalty got hit at him.
Messi's penalty kick in the final was so
bold
to
penalty.
get Hugo Lloris to bite and then just soft roll it like right down left center.
Right, and oh my gosh, and Hugo almost jumped back. But okay, so the golden ball. Okay, this is a twofold question. Was Lionel Messi the best player in this tournament? And does winning the World Cup finally solidify him as the best player to ever play this game?
Say, this is the hard thing about a World Cup tournament is it's different from like a season in a league in that, kickoff to the final whistle of each game that he played in. I would say no, Messi was not the best player throughout all of the time in the tournament. And he just can't be with how much he's static. And, even though he takes his chances really well, I can't say he's the best player because he's not doing enough through each 90 minutes of the game. That being said, World Cup, because it's so much of knockout games, it's not, a slog of a season. Moments that you get matter so much more within the tournament, because if you have a great moment and create one, maybe that wins you that game and that, gets you on through the tournament. So Messi had the best moments. Messi had the greatest moments throughout the course of the tournament. I think for that reason, I'm fine with him getting the golden ball. As far as overall performance and what you contributed to your team, he really wasn't the best player throughout the tournament. Want me to answer the second part now, or
No,
wait
let's go to
until
Ryan.
after
Let's
you
go to
guys
Ryan.
answer
Let's
the
go to
first
Ryan.
part?
So Ryan, is that it? Who's the player of the tournament? Did Messi deserve that award? Is he the best player in the tournament?
I think so, and for a lot of the reasons Chris said, right? Like he made those moments happen for Argentina. Think about how many goals started just because Messi takes on 1-2 defenders, beats them, plays a ball to a guy who's wide open, or goes, you know what, I could just score from here, and he shoots and scores, right? So and as Chris said, it's the World Cup. One goal is huge, right? Like you can't lose a game once you get past group stage. And in theory, Argentina couldn't lose a game after they lost the first one. So
Right.
unlike playing a Premier League where like, oh, okay, we lost one of our 37 games of the season, it doesn't really matter. We can still win the league.
Right.
But what I do think helped him get golden ball is he is the first man to ever score in every single knockout game.
True.
That's true. Yeah,
Some of those were penalties. It still is a
It
very
directly
valid
ties
point.
into Chris's statement, right? Like it's about single moments and it's about
Yes.
moments that make or break you. Yeah.
So he scores in the round of 16, he scores in the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and he gets 2 in the finals, right? So as much as you're like, okay, yeah, but he doesn't really contribute anywhere else on the field, which is true. He tends to play this style of I'm going to stand around, save my energy, and when I get the ball, I'm going to be explosive and make something happen. And it worked in the tournament. It's worked for him for most of his career, almost his entire career. So why change it if guys can't? He's been playing for what 23 years almost.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like and the people haven't figured out how to cover him yet. Why change your strategy?
Right.
Yeah.
I do think Mbappe could have won it for how well he played. But I think scoring goals in every knockout stage was the huge deciding factor because FIFA has to look at that and be like, look, he just set a record. No guy has ever done this before. Not only did his team win,
Mm-hmm.
but he also was basically the reason why they won all of their groups or their knockout games.
Right. When I can tell you who's really excited
Yeah.
for that, right, is the Argentina Football Association, right? Because if you're one, your team just won a World Cup, right? But second, like, I think the thing that wasn't fair to some of the other players in this tournament was that it's Lionel Messi. Are you really going to not award Lionel Messi the golden ball after he carries his team in the media stance to a World Cup victory at 35 years old? Right? Were you going to be those people who said, no, I think it was somebody else, right? You were going to do it. Now, I believe that Messi was the best player in the tournament. I do believe it was close. I believe that Mbappe gets robbed because Mbappe does more offensively, purely offensively, than Messi did. Messi has more assists. Messi's contributing a little bit more to chances, and that definitely plays into it. But I also agree with you, Ryan, that if in American media, and I'm sure it's all over the world, commentators love to say in big games, big players got to step up.
Yep.
And you look at those 4 games, Messi was the epitome of that. Messi said, okay, it's a knockout game. Okay, that you guys need me. I'm going to put the ball in the back of the net. And I understand that 2 of those were penalties, right? But penalties in this World Cup had a 64% conversion rate.
They're not easy.
Which is right. That's a little bit better than a coin flip. And so I think Messi deserved it. I think like the number of goals that he had was great.
Ask Harry Kane.
Right. Just ask Harry Kane. I mean, Harry Kane, like, he, you know, like, and Mbappe was putting on a clinic, right? Mbappe's like, I'm going to hit it in the same spot 3 times. I'm going to thump it past the goalie. I don't care if was the third one to go the other way.
His first one went, the two of them Martinez got a hand on were the same direction. The other one was the opposite direction.
All 3 of them went the same way.
I thought all 3 of them went left.
Dove the other way.
Oh, Martinez dove.
Yeah, I was going to say all 3 of them went to the left and hit the side ending, and 2 of them he got his hand on. But like, so I think that Messi deserved it. I do think that it's unfortunate that it's fortunate and unfortunate he is who he is, because there was definitely that moment where you're like, no one is going to be the person to say, no, I don't think so. Right. But on that token, I do agree with what Chris is saying, that like, when you evaluate the player of the tournament, there were players in this tournament that did more work for their team across the 90 minutes, across all of the games that they played, right? Like Hakimi for Morocco was a monster all tournament, right?
Yeah,
but because
his name? Sevicic for Croatia, the defender with the carbon mask.
Yeah.
My God.
Right. And they're just doing work, but you're not Messi, right? So let's go to the second.
Messi created goals.
Correct. Messi creates these goals in the spectrum also. So now we're going to go to like the big question, and this will be our last question. We'll wrap, as we wrap this thing up. Is Lionel Messi now the greatest player to ever have played this game? Ryan, you get to go first on this one.
I mean, I don't like, so I understand it's a phrase people use, like, oh, they're the GOAT, greatest of all time, right? Like, oh, Wayne Gretzky is the greatest of all time. Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. But times are so different, right? Soccer is different now than it was when Pele played. Soccer is different now than, when Ronaldinho played, right? Do I think he's the greatest of all time? No, I don't think anybody is the greatest of all time. I think they're greatest for their time.
Wow,
right?
This is getting deep. Hold on.
And I actually think that this final is to me, is the passing of that greatest torch, right? Messi was like, look, I'm cementing my legacy of being the best for my era when I played. Nobody will be as good as me for the amount of time that I played.
Mm-hmm.
Mbappe is now taking that torch and being like, okay, I see what you did. Now watch what I can do. Right? Because everything always gets better. Rules change. The sport changes. Right? When you have to think, when Pele played, I'm sure there's no VAR, right? How many penalties get missed? How many penalties get called that shouldn't have been called? Right? Like, how many more goals or how many less goals would Pele have with VAR?
Right.
Right? Like, is Messi better than Pele? Who knows? They didn't get to play against each other. They play at 2 completely different times. You can't say one is better than the other. Pele was so much better than everybody else that he played with at his time. And the same is true for Messi. Messi is so much better than everybody he plays with. And then the same is for Mbappe. Mbappe is just so much better than all of the guys that he goes up against, or the guys that are on his team. And those are the types of players that everyone's always like, oh, they're the greatest of all time. And it's like, no, it's so hard to make that decision because everything is different.
Right. I agree. Chris, what are your thoughts? Did this do it? Did Messi cement his legacy?
He didn't need to. I would have said 5 years ago that Messi was the greatest player ever. So, he didn't need a World Cup to say that he was the greatest ever. I do think that for a lot of people, again, not me personally, but I do think that for a lot of people, winning this World Cup will settle the Messi versus Ronaldo debate, like who was the best player between the 2 of them. because they clearly were the two best players for the last 20 years. There's no doubt about that. But now Messi has a World Cup, Cristiano Ronaldo does not. So there's a lot of
Cristiano
people who
Ronaldo's getting
maybe,
his contracts cut by big clubs.
yeah. So there's a
I,
lot of people who are maybe like on the fence about that, who are
Mhm.
now going to say, okay, well, I can give it to Messi. I do get Ryan's point for sure. You know, the style of the game was different. If you look in the 80s when Maradona was playing, he's getting kicked and just assaulted sometimes on the pitch.
he
Messi's
also
never had to
scored
deal
with
with
his
that kind
hand,
of abuse.
so
He did.
Yeah, he
Well,
did.
and so, but thinking about Maradona, does this get like the biggest frustration for me having to listen to all of this World Cup after World Cup after World Cup? Because if you've been following this, this is like the third World Cup in a row that we've had to just like eye roll and listen to the media take the same approach, and I was tired of it. Messi's better than Maradona. Okay,
Yes, he
like
is.
period.
I think
Well, and that's where I
Batistuta
was
is better
going.
than
I think
Maradona.
Batistuta was better than Maradona, and so I was
This is where I
tired.
was going though
Yeah,
with my point is that I get what Ryan was saying about the eras and everything, and the game is different. One thing that I would say in soccer that you can really look at that's different than a lot of other sports is watching them actually play the game, watching positioning on the field, skill, touches with the ball, short touches, and shooting ability. Like just watching those skills throughout a game, you can analyze pretty well, despite all the other stuff that's going on, really who is better. And for me, Messi is better because he does all of those things better than the other guys that you might talk about. Like or as well as the other guys. Like Pele is one of the absolute best finishers of all time. His shooting ability was amazing. Like he could shoot
mm-hmm.
the ball could be in any position and he was getting a really good shot on goal. And he was also a good dribbler. Passing not as great. His off the ball movement is very good, but not like way better than a lot of others. Um, if you look at Maradona, his shooting wasn't amazing. It was very good. He had other things. Messi, if you look at it, and if you talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, his dribbling and passing and off the ball, his dribbling and shooting and off the ball movement have always been amazing. The one place that Messi has always been better than him is passing and his looking for his teammates. Point is, if you look at those skills within a game, Messi has all of those at a extremely high level. I don't think anybody else has ever had all of those things.
Right. And yeah, and I mean, I agree with everything that you're saying. I think, my take on this is I think Messi is the best player in the world. I think, I disagree with Ryan a little bit, even though I agree with what Ryan is saying, and I think you're absolutely right. It is actually impossible for us to have any idea how the players of today would have performed back then because we're not looking at them in their current form. We're looking at them with the same training gear, the same recovery stuff, the same sports science. Sports science really is the reason why most players are just better, right? Like everybody currently playing for the U.S. men's team is better than anybody who played 10 years ago. Why? Because sports science is just better, right? So from that, removing that lens, I love that Messi is finally out from underneath Diego Maradona's shadow, right? I was tired of listening to it. I was tired of having everybody be like, is he ever going to be Maradona? Like, he's 20 times the player Maradona ever was, right? Maradona got kicked out of a World Cup because he did cocaine, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so these, and Messi's biggest controversy was that he just basically told the Netherlands off or something. Like, wow, okay. Like, so it was nice to see that. I think I agree with you, Chris. Like, he didn't need this to do it, right? I like that I got to watch him do it.
Me too. I was so happy to see him win it.
I enjoy that put the argument to rest from the non-soccer savant type of people, right? Like, I have a lot of coworkers at work that are like, "Oh, I'm going to buy a Messi jersey because he won a World Cup and he's the GOAT, man." And it's like, yeah, but he was the GOAT for Barcelona. Like, if you saw any of those things, right? Like, he's the GOAT. For I think PSG is the one spot where like Mbappe is going to get to be compared because in the amount of time that they're going to be there, Mbappe is going to get to outshine him. But like I'm glad that he got to do it. I'm glad that he won these things. He was a great player. He took opportunities of his chances. I think he's the greatest.
Great to watch him in the award ceremony.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was awesome.
Cool to see that.
And I think he's the greatest player that's ever played the sport to this time. And I also think you're right that Cristiano Ronaldo just didn't do everything, right? Kylian Mbappe didn't do everything, right? Like Luka Modric didn't do everything. And Messi just happens to be one of those people. Now, Messi's weakness we've talked about, he likes to walk around. You're right, he doesn't do a lot of running.
And that is true of the last 4 or 5 years as he's gotten older. But if you go back to when he was 23, 24,
just tearing around,
fantastic press defense player. He can't do it anymore because he doesn't have the legs to run a whole game.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
I think
when he could.
Right.
I think one of my favorite things about the Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi thing is that Cristiano Ronaldo became the first man to score in 5 separate World Cups. Right? And Messi was like, "Oh, I see your challenge and I raise it. I'm better than you."
Yeah, just literally.
By not only winning, but scoring in all of the knockout rounds. He was like, "Oh, cool. You can do that. Watch what I can do."
Correct. It's like, I've scored in 5 different World Cups. It's like, yeah, and your team's gone home in
all
group
5
state. Right, in all 5 of them. And my teams continue to climb it. But yeah, so hey man, I'm bummed that it's done. I'm bummed that it's over. We got to wait another 4 years, but it's going to be in the States. So I'm excited for that.
What? 6,
like 3.5
months? 6 months.
That's right. That's true. We got
the women.
Yes, it's 6 more months to the women. So going forward on this channel, obviously Chris and I hinted at it. Ryan and I have talked about stuff. So here's what's coming forward real quick. We're going to be covering U.S. men's soccer development intermittently as it comes. We're going to be covering the U20 World Cup of this coming summer when it's there. And I do think that we're going to cover a lot of the women's tournament. And to fill you guys in on that, because it's the World Cup, it's U.S. soccer. The men are going to be kind of a rebuilding phase, and the women are a fun team to watch. It's U.S. soccer. We're going to be supporting them. That's where the channel is going to be going. We want to thank everybody who's been subscribing and tuning in and hitting us with views recently. This podcast has now officially been on for over a year. It was actually a year last month. And Chris has joined us in these last couple months, so it's great to have Chris on board, and we can get, a more diverse panel when Ryan can't make it or when Chris can't make it, so this is great. Hopefully we get, more people on in the future. Guys, it's been great having you and talking soccer. The World Cup is over. It has been a pleasure. This has just been an unbelievable time of the season. Have everybody just enjoy your holidays. If we don't see you, we don't have another video. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will catch you guys next time.
Merry Christmas.